வருஷத்துக்கு முன்னாடி இது பண்ணனால என்கிட்ட அது கையில இல்ல. அவங்களோட மெயில செக் பண்ண சொன்னா மெயில்லயுமே கண்டு
Good evening, all the joinees. Thank you for being here. This is Jaita. I would like to welcome you all on behalf of NGEN Research to this webinar session. Meanwhile, others join. Let us see what we are going to cover in today's webinar. Our topic for the day is comparison of mutual fund schemes. First, we will make a robust use of the query tab to create mutual fund list using some filters and conditions. Second, we will measure the performance of the mutual fund with its appropriate benchmark and category average by looking at CAGR, standard deviation, Sharpe ratio, etc. Third, we will look at the plotting of mutual funds and the benchmark on a risk versus return scatter plot. Fourth, we will compare the daily rolling returns and drawdowns of mutual funds with the benchmark to get a comprehensive view of consistency and risk. And lastly, the forum will be open for Q&A on today's topic. So now I go to the NGEN Markets tab. So here you can see the overview section of the Markets tab, and this is the landing page of our platform. For today's webinar purpose, I will be focusing on the Funds tab and Compare tab. There are three ways to load SEBI category schemes on NGEN Markets platform. The first way is using this Compare tab. So if you click on this Compare tab, you can see this Add Group section where you can enter the SEBI category name. So for example, I search for contra fund category. There are total 4 contra funds. All are now loaded on this tab. The second way to create or load SEBI category schemes is using this Funds tab. So on this Funds tab, you can see the first tab is Screen tab. Under this tab, you can see a filter categories icon, which you can select, and now you can see a window opens up. And here you can see SEBI categories. So on this section, you can click on any of the SEBI category checkbox. So let's say I select FlexiCap checkbox and I select Focused Fund checkbox, and I close this window. So now you can see Focused Fund and FlexiCap funds are loaded for all the AMCs. So now here, if you have any AMC preference, then you can click on the filter AMC icon and you can select your AMC. For example, I select DSP and Edelweiss AMC. So now if I close this, you can see Focused Fund and FlexiCap funds from DSP and Edelweiss AMC. So now I am going to remove the AMC filter and I go back to the filter categories icon. So I just keep this Focused Fund category checkbox checked so that I can load all 28 focused funds on this Screen tab. So now you can see there are total 28 results that are loaded on the Screen tab. So now on this preset column view section, if you click on the drop down, you can see some preset column view which you can select as per your preference. If you wish to look upon the written columns only, then you can select this written column view and all written related columns will be loaded on this section. Now, if you wish to narrow down this long focus funds list using some filters from the top, then you can look at this apply filter section where you can put a minimum AUM parameter. You can also put a minimum age parameter if you do not want any young fund in your list. You can also take a minimum Sharpe ratio filter, and then you can also take a minimum return filter. So you need to select a return period first, and then you need to enter a return parameter. Next, you can also see a minimum 95% historical value at risk filter. So now I will take two filter. So I am taking minimum AUM as 2000, and I will take a return filter. So I am taking 2 years minimum return, and I take 5% as a 2-year return. And now you need to click on this apply icon to see the effect. So once I click on this apply, now you can see I have 8 results on this tab basis on these two filters which I have selected. So if you go to the AUM column and if you arrange this column in a descending order, you can see that all these focused funds AUM size is more than 2000 crores. And now you can scroll down the screen and you can use this scroller to go towards right so that you can view the 2 years column. So if you arrange the 2 years column, you can see that all these focused funds 2 years return is more than 5%. So now these focused funds which you see, you can take these funds to the compare section. There are two ways to take these funds to the compare section. The first way is that you can click on this compare icon and you can take one fund individually to the compare section. For example, I click on the compare icon for SBI focused fund, and now you can see a small tick mark icon. So when you see this small tick mark, you will know that you have taken this SBI focused fund on this compare tab. But if you wish to take all these focused funds together on the compare tab, then you need to click on this add of 50 to compare icon to put the funds together on this compare section. Now the third way to load SEBI category schemes is using the funds query tab. So we have this query tab next to the screen tab. So this query tab is an advanced version of screen tab. So you can, one second. Yeah, so here on this funds tab, query tab, you will see a select statistic filter option, which you can select as per your choice. So when you click on the drop down, you can see various filter parameters which you can select to create your mutual funds list. So first you will see some basic filters. Next you will see some return filters. Next you can see filters for risk related, and then you can see holding filters, and last you will see calendar year filters. So here you can see the calendar year filters. So now if I want to create a query for small cap schemes, then you need to select SEBI category as a filter. And now you can select the SEBI category, which is small cap. And now you need to click on this add condition icon. So now you can see the first condition is added. And as per this first condition, you can see 36 funds are found. So there are 36 small cap funds that are currently trading in the market. Now, if you wish to create a small cap query with a AUM filter, then you can select this AUM as a filter. The moment you take this AUM filter, you can see a minimum and maximum range for the AUM size. So you can put your own range. Let's say you want to see those small cap funds whose AUM size is between 2000 to 15,000 crores. You can input that figure and then you can click on add condition. So on the basis of this second condition, you can see 17 funds are found. Now, You can also take another filter. So for example, I take a return filter. So I am selecting this 5 years annualized return filter. And again, you can see a minimum and maximum range for a 5 years return filter. So here, if you wish to see those small cap funds whose 5 years return is at least 14%, then you can change your minimum return to 14%. And now you can click on add condition. So now you can see on the basis of the third condition, 10 funds are found. So now you can click on this show 10 funds, and on the right side you can see those 10 small cap funds are appearing whose AUM size is between 2,000 to 15,000 crores. If you click on this AUM column, you can arrange the data in a descending order, and now you can see that Franklin Small Cap has the highest AUM size, and that is 14,336 crores. You can go to this 5 years return column and you can arrange the 5 years return in a descending column, and you can see that Invesco Small Cap has generated a best 5 years return, and that is 19.49%. So now you can take all these funds together to the compare tab by clicking on this compare icon. So now the funds are shifted to the compare tab. So on this tab, you can add a benchmark, you can add a SEBI category to compare these small cap funds. So under this add other items, you need to search for the benchmark from this search benchmark section. So I will be adding Nifty Small Cap 250 as a benchmark. Now you can see the benchmark is added as a row item, and I will search for the small cap SEBI category. So now the SEBI category is also added as a row item. Now you can see the first fund is UTI Small Cap, and you can see the age of the fund is 5.67. So the CAGR standard deviation, Sharpe, Sortino, value at risk that you see for this fund is showing from its inception date. So in last 5.67 years, the fund has generated a 19.80% return. So on these green color coded columns, you can see all these items since inception: CAGR, standard deviation, Sharpe ratio, Sortino ratio, and value at risk. If you wish to compare their CAGR or Sharpe ratio from a start date, then you need to click on this return columns settings icon where you can put a start date. Let's say I take a start date of 5 years. I take 2nd August 2021 as a start date, and I click on go. The moment you click on go, you will see this custom start date alert. So when you see this alert, you will know that you have taken a start date for the return columns, which are the green color coded columns. And now all these green color coded columns data are calculated from the start date, which is 2nd August 2021. And the end date is yesterday. So on this main list, you cannot put a end date. The end date is yesterday date. Now, if you arrange this CAGR column in a descending order, you can see that Invesco Small Cap has generated a 18.76% return. The SEBI category has generated 16.31% return. The benchmark generated a 14.64% CAGR. Now you can clearly see that ITI and Canada Robeco Small Cap Fund, these are the two funds that underperform the SEBI category but outperform the benchmark CAGR. But if you look at this UTI Small Cap and ICICI Small Cap Fund, these are the two funds which has underperformed the benchmark as well as SEBI category CAGR. Now next is standard deviation column. So you can see all these funds annualized standard deviation in this 5 years duration. Now let us moving towards the pink columns where you can see the relative returns data. To see the data on these pink columns, you need to turn on this relative return checkbox. The moment you turn on the checkbox, you can see data appears on these pink columns, and this data is appearing with respect to Nifty 50 benchmark. And the platform has selected 22nd December 2020 as a start date. So the reason that platform captured this date as a start date, because we have a youngest small cap fund in this list, and that is the reason you cannot go back in time for these pink columns for the youngest fund. If you wish to go back in time, then you have to remove the young fund from this list. So as we are comparing small cap schemes, so I will be taking the small cap benchmark for the pink columns for a fair comparison. And I will also change the start date, and I will take the same date which I have taken for the return columns, which is 2nd August 2021. Now you can see the cumulative excess return column, where you can see the Invesco small cap has generated 38.45% excess return over the Nifty small cap 250 benchmark. ICICI small cap has underperformed the benchmark by 9.88%. Next, you can see the annualized excess return column. Next, you can see the beta of the funds in this duration. So you can see that the market beta or the benchmark beta is 1, and you can see the beta of the other schemes in this duration. So we know that if the beta is more than 1, then the fund is riskier compared to its benchmark. And if the beta is lesser than the 1, then the fund is less riskier compared to the benchmark. Now, if I move towards blue columns, here you can see the holdings data of the fund. So for all these small cap schemes, you can see their equity exposure, debt exposure, and other exposure. And next, you can see their large cap, mid cap, small cap, and other exposure. So now, as you can see, UTI and ICICI small cap has underperformed the benchmark and SEBI category. So I will be removing these two funds by clicking on this delete icon, because I do not wish to analyze those schemes which has underperformed the benchmark and SEBI category in a 5-year period. And now I move towards the rolling tab for the rolling analysis. So now on this rolling tab, you need to take a start date and a end date, and that will be your time horizon. So let's say I take this time horizon since August 2021 to till date, and on this rolling window section, you need to take a holding period. In our platform, 260 days is equivalent to 1 year holding period, because we exclude Saturdays and Sundays from a 1 year period, and 21 days is equivalent to 1 month holding period. So once you click on this rolling window, you can see some preset holding periods which you can select. But if you wish to take any other holding period, then you have to type the holding period manually. Now I click on this 780 days holding period, which is equivalent to 3 years, and I click on run. Now on this average column, you can see the average annualized rolling return generated by all these items. So if I arrange this average column in a descending order, you can see that ITI small cap has generated a best average annualized rolling return, that is 23.58%. The benchmark average rolling return was 20.93%. Next, on this vol column, you can see the rolling returns volatility. Next, on this high column, you can see the highest rolling returns generated by these schemes. On the low column, you can see the lowest rolling return generated by the schemes. Next is the range column, where you can see the swing between highest and lowest rolling return. And next we have this positive percentage column, where you can see all 100 is showing, because all these funds lowest returns are positive. So 100% of the times, all these funds has generated a return on positive quadrant. So if I now change this rolling window to 260 days holding period and I run this analysis, now you can see the data has changed. Now if you arrange this average column, you can see that the best average annualized rolling return is generated by Invesco Small Cap, and that is 19.31%. The highest return of the fund is 50.8%, and the lowest rolling return of the fund is negative 5.26%. Now, if you observe this positive percentage column, you can see it is showing as 95.26. So 95% of the times this fund has generated a return on positive quadrant for 260 days holding period. Now, if you look at the Canada Lepoco small cap lowest return, that is negative 10.15%. So the fund has generated a return on positive quadrant by 85% of the times. So now if you wish to know that when did this ITI small cap has generated the highest return like 54%, then you need to hover your cursor on the ITI small cap rolling line chart. So let's say I hover my cursor on this point, and on this point you can see the date is showing, which is 4th July 2024, and the rolling return is showing as 54.29%. Any investor who has invested on this ITI small cap fund exactly 260 days back from 4th July 2024, the investor got a 54.29% return from ITI small cap fund. And when you hover your cursor on the rolling line chart, you can see the daily rolling returns. If you take the average of these daily rolling returns, that is the average return for the fund. Now let's move to the drawdowns tab. On this drawdown tab, you can compare 5 worst drawdown situation of these funds with their benchmark and with the SEBI category. So you need to compare all these funds drawdown size and the drawdown recovery days, and then you will know which fund has a good strength to bounce back from their loss faster. Right now you can see the start date of this drawdowns tab is selected as 17 February 2020. So now the platform is calculating 5 worst drawdown situation since 17 February 2020 to till date. So if I arrange this size column, you can see the worst drawdown was experienced by benchmark, that is negative 42.97%. And you can see the length, which is the total number of days that the benchmark was experiencing this drawdown. So that is 23 working days. And if you look at this recovery column, you can see the total number of days is showing as 170 days. So the fund has experienced this drawdown for 23 working days, and the fund has taken 170 days to recover this 42% drawdown. So for the detailed drawdown analysis, you can click on the chart icon and you can see the drawdown start date and end date. So you can see for the benchmark, the drawdown started on 20 February 2020. On this date, the level of the drawdown, the level of the fund, sorry, the level of the benchmark was 5,203. And the drawdown has continued in this benchmark till 24th March 2020. And the level came down to 2,967. So from the start date to end date, the drawdown length was 23 working days, and after this end date, the benchmark started recovering this drawdown, and it took 170 working days to recover this drawdown. And on 17 November 2020, this drawdown was recovered. Now, if you wish to look at any other fund's detailed drawdown analysis, then you can click on this Bank of India Small Cap Fund. So this fund has experienced a 32% drawdown, and it took 100 working days to recover this drawdown. And you can click on the chart icon and you can see the drawdown started on 20 February 2020. On this date, the NAV of the fund was 12.15. The drawdown has continued in this fund till 23rd March 2020, and the NAV came down to 8.20. So from the start date to end date, the drawdown length was 22 working days. And after this end date, the fund started recovering, and it took 100 working days to recover, and the drawdown was recovered on 10 August 2020. So if you wish to verify this drawdown data with the drawdown chart, you can do that. So if I zoom this section, you can see the drawdown, the 32% drawdown started on 20 February 2020, and the NAV was 12.15. The drawdown has continued till 23rd March 2020, and the NAV came down to 8.20. So this drawdown was recovered somewhere here on 10th August, and on this date, the fund reclaimed the 12.15 NAV. Now let's go to the risk versus return scatter plot. So in this tab, you can see that we are measuring the annualized risk, which is annualized standard deviation, on the x-axis, and we are measuring annualized return on the y-axis. And you can see there are 4 quadrants on this scatter plot. On the top left, you can see low risk, high return. On the bottom left, you can see low risk, low return. On the top right, you can see high risk, high return. And on the bottom right, you can see high risk, low return. So on this scatter plot, you can see the period that our platform has taken, that is 17 February 2020 to till date. So in this period, if you see that if the funds are positioned, or if the funds are plotted on the left side on the scatter plot, then the risk of the funds are lesser. If the funds are plotted on the right side on the scatter plot, then the risk is higher. If the funds are plotted on the upper side on the scatter plot, then the return is higher. And if the funds are plotted on the lower side on the scatter plot, the return is lesser. So if I hover my cursor on this Bank of India small cap, you can see the fund has plotted itself on the low risk, high return quadrant. The risk is 18.73% and the return is 26.04%. And if I hover my cursor on the benchmark, you can see the benchmark is plotted on the high risk, low return quadrant. The risk is 20% and the return is 21.45%. So you can see that the Bank of India small cap plotting is relative to the other 10 small cap funds plotting on this scatter plot. So on this risk versus return tab, we do relative plotting. If I change this time period, or if I take any other fund on this section, or if I remove any fund from this risk return scatter plot, then all of these funds plotting on this scatter plot will change. If you wish to download the risk return data for each of these schemes, then you can click on the grid icon to download the data in an Excel. Now you can see our NGEN scores toggle, which we have introduced recently in our platform. So you can click on this NGEN scores toggle and you can see the NGEN scores scatter plot. So on the top left, we are showing the weak risk score, strong returns. On the bottom left, you can see weak on both. On the top right, you can see strong on both. And on the bottom right, you can see strong risk score and weak return score. On the x-axis, we are measuring NGEN risk score. On the y-axis, we are measuring NGEN return score. So if I hover my cursor on this Bank of India small cap, you can see the return score of the fund is strong, that is 7.15. And the risk score is weak, that is 2.29. Hence, the NGEN FS is 6.84. If I hover my cursor on the Canara Robeco small cap fund, you can see the return score is weak, that is 2.81, but the risk score is strong, that is 5.25. Hence, the NGEN FS is 3.03. All right, that's about it from my side for the topic-specific webinar discussion. Now the forum is open for topic-specific Q&A. Please ask your question, either unmuting yourself or typing in the chat box.
So there is a question in the chat box. So how you can arrange the schemes in descending order? So basically, if you go to compare tab in main list, so if you just click on any of the column head, so you can just simply sort it like lowest to highest or highest to lowest. So you can do the same by clicking on any of the column heads here.
Can you once show how did you come back from that query tab to the main tab in which you were doing things?
Hello. Yes, so now I am on this Funds tab, Query tab. On this tab, you can see that I have created a query of these small cap schemes. And once you click on this compare icon at the top, all these 10 funds will shift to the compare tab. So let me do it again. I click and now the funds are shifted on this main list.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Welcome.
So there is another question. So can you explain me the date part of relative returns, like the reason behind that column? So basically, as you can see here in this relative returns, we have given another start date feature because here we are selecting the benchmark. So if you want to see these relative returns for a specific time period, you can just select the start date. So as you can see here, by default, as we were comparing all the small cap funds, so we have took their respective benchmark, which is Nifty Small Cap 250, and also the start date. So if you wanted to see these relative returns from a specific start date, so you can put up your date here, through which you can see the specific returns for that time period. So there is another question. So for the return column date and relative column date should be the same. Yes. So if you want to do a fair comparison, so the dates for the returns column and the relative returns date should be the same. So through which you can do a fair comparison for the same. So any more questions? Please let us know.
If there is no more questions, you can close the webinar.
All right, you can view the recording of this session as well as our previous webinar session recording on our YouTube channel. So for that, you can click on this video icon and you will be redirected to the YouTube video page. We have a dedicated playlist for webinar topics. This week's webinar will be uploaded by the next week. Thank you for joining, everyone. Have a great weekend ahead.